In this video, we're going to talk about main menu screens, a really important part of your games, of course. And by the end of it, you'll have a very rough and ready main menu, just an image. But that's enough for the first one. There's plenty to learn, and I'll see you in there. So it's with some excitement I introduce you to how to make a start menu for your game, because after all games start here. I actually advocate making your start menu pretty early on in the process. So lots of ways you can do menus in Unreal. In our Battleground scene, attached to our player controller, we have now got a tiny piece of UI, right? That little white dot, and later we'll have the ammo, etc. And if you wanted a pause screen, then the pause screen would pop up in this window. And it would do that typically by unhiding a piece of UI that was always there in the first place. So what I mean by that is if we look at the player UI, what we might do for a pause screen, for example, don't do this, I'm just going to give you a bit of an overview. What we might do for a pause screen is have an image, perhaps like this, with maybe a transparent background, and it may say some stuff on it and give us some options. And then we might hide that element most of the time so that the game just shows through. And when we hit pause, we might unhide the element. All right, so that's a valid way of building up a UI. Now, we could have a single UI across the entire game for the start menu, for the in-game, and just hide elements and show elements, but it gets really confusing in the hierarchy of the UI, amongst other things. So there are several reasons why it's just simpler and easier if we have a separate level for our start menu. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to just set up a completely independent level. So let's do that now. File, New Level. Going to make it completely empty, so an empty level, and I'm just going to call it Main Menu. Now, of course, the way you do that is you try and save it, and it goes, well, you don't have a name, so we give it a name. Main Menu. Perfect. So now in our levels folder, we have a main menu. If it wasn't in your levels, of course, you can drag it there very easily. And while we're dragging things, let's drag the tank player controller into the tank folder, moving, not copying. And we'll leave the player UI right where it is just for now. So we have a main menu. I'm just going to save some changes, and it's completely blank. So what I want you to do is to actually set up this UI. Don't try and make an entire main menu. I'm going to go through that with you. But I'm going to ask you to just get it showing something. But before you do that, we need to decide which blueprint is going to be responsible for setting this up. In the case of the tank and the game, it's the player controller, because that makes sense, right? If your tank dies, you may want to depossess the tank, come into a spectator view, and still be able to see like your health or your ammo or something. So it's the player controller that seems to make sense there. Now, in this level, we have nothing but a main menu. So the logical place to me to put the code that is going to set up the UI is in the level blueprint. So under the main menu, with that selected, make sure you're in main menu, go to blueprints, and open level blueprint. There's already a level blueprint there, we just can't see it. So this level blueprint is where we're going to set this up. We're going to get rid of the tick, and in begin play, we're going to do exactly the same magic as we did over on the previous piece of UI for the aiming reticule. There's a cool word, reticule. And we're just going to show something, just like an image or a button or something. So that is your challenge, actually. So really revising UI, add a widget from the level blueprint. Open the main menu level blueprint, as I just did. Create a blueprint to add the widget to the screen. So make a widget. You haven't even got a UI widget yet. Make a widget class, blueprint class, just like we did for the player. And then create some blueprint code to add that to the screen. Same as we just did. And test it works, by the way, with a button, an image, or just some UI element so you can see that it's working. So this is going to be a great revision of UI for you. Make sure you understood what we did in the previous video. So pause the video. Please don't just watch my solution. Please take the opportunity to challenge yourself. That's where all the learning happens. And I'll see you in a moment. Okay, welcome back. Let's make this happen. Arguably, the most sensible thing to do first is to actually create ourselves our piece of UI. So we have a player UI. What we're going to want now, maybe is a folder called UI. That seems to start to make sense. Put the player UI in it. Go into it. And I'm going to make myself a new user interface widget blueprint. And I'm going to call it menu. Oh, can't type. BP. And actually, while we're here, this player UI, it is actually a blueprint, so why not rename it? The great thing about anything that's blueprint related is we can actually rename without trouble. Of course, C++ classes aren't so forgiving. Just to prove that, let's pop back to the battleground. and play. Make sure that it still works. It does. Good. All right, so we're at the point now where we want to actually make ourselves a UI main menu. And we have two tabs, the designer tab, which is where we're going to put the things down, and the event graph. We don't need anything in the graph yet, but we do need to put something down just to prove that this is working. So ultimately, we're going to have a background image here. So I will take the background image and pop it on the background like that. That'll do. Just a big white blob is pretty obvious, and just compile that. So now I have a blueprint class. We need to tell something, which is the level blueprint here for the main menu. We need to tell it to construct this widget. So remember what we do. We create a widget. We choose the class, main menu blueprint. That's all you need to do there. That spits out a reference to the actual instance of the blueprint. Of the widget class, sorry. Of the widget, the user interface. Now, we add to viewport. Wires it up automatically for us. And that should be it. Let's compile it. Play. We have the essence of a main menu. Fantastic. So now let's start actually configuring up the main menu and have it do something, like have a background image might be a start, right? Well, we're going to get you an image that you can use for the background. Now, the way I found the image that I supply in the course, I think, is I just went to, I can't remember, tank firing or something. As a Google search, I go to search tools, I look for, where did I do this? Images, search tools, usage rights, label for reuse with modification, just to be fairly safe, and here's the tank image itself. So you could just go and get it from Wikipedia, or you can download it from against this lecture. So I'm going to download this image, view image, oops, just to show you, and you can go and choose any image you like, but obviously if you're making a commercial game, just be a little bit careful about what you do with that image. There it is, there's the image, and let's pop into the main menu, and let's specify this image. Now you can't just, by the way, pull the image directly in because it's not yet imported into Unreal, so it's only going to see assets that are imported. So to import that image, we simply import to Game/UI. So I'm going to my content browser, in my UI folder, and you right click in there and say import to game. Then we can go and find the relevant image like that, and there it is. We have the image. Great. So now back in the main menu blueprint, that image I put on the background, we can then go and specify what the actual image that we're going to be using here is. So I'm going to call it background image for a start. We'll worry about the anchors and stuff in just a moment. Let's just get the image in to make sure that it is behaving itself. So can you see in this menu system where we set the image? It's not completely obvious. It's actually under the brush. We're brushing this box with the image. So you open up the brush. And now you can go ahead and choose with that drop down the image we imported. Great, there it is. And it's got the image size, etc. So what we need to do now is just get the properties of this image so that it's behaving itself. We want to think about this image staying in the screen, even if the screen is slightly different in size. We want the image to be nicely centered in the screen and nicely anchored. We also need to add some buttons and to also make the mouse available when we're in the game without this hacky Shift F1 that they talk about. You would find that if you actually build this game for Mac or PC right now, that the mouse won't be available. So there's lots of other things we need to do, scaling the image, buttons, mouse, and others. So let's make those the subject of future videos because this one's plenty long enough.